Hello and welcome, everyone. Jeong Yoo-jeong is a quiet young Korean woman. She followed a typical school path. A gifted student, discreet, the kind teachers barely notice. But when you look a little deeper into her personal story, the picture changes. An unhappy, invisible childhood. A lonely young woman fascinated by crime. The calm before the storm. And then, an obsession that turns into a plan. In today's podcast, I invite you to explore with me this case that deeply shocked South Korea, how a dark fascination turned into a deadly project. We're in one of the residential neighborhoods of Busan, a large port city in South Korea. As summer is in full swing, more and more people from Seoul arrive each day, along with Chinese tourists escaping the suffocating heat of the bigger cities. This is where Jeong Yoo-jeong, 22, lives. She prefers the quiet of her room over the tourist-filled seaside. It's always been her refuge, her safe space, where she feels grounded and spends most of her time. Her window overlooks an abandoned construction site, frozen for nearly 10 years due to a lack of funding. She lives with her grandfather, who's been taking care of her for the past 18 years. Or rather, it's him who shares his home with her. It wasn't always like this. She used to live with her parents. Things changed after Uma, her mother, left. Yoo-jeong's parents divorced when she was barely 3 years old. Her mother left the family home to escape a reckless husband whose life revolved around casinos rather than his own family. The little girl stayed with her father, but her father had many issues: alcohol, gambling, and debts of all kinds. He spent every penny he made and couldn't keep a job for more than 2 months before getting fired. Soon he realized he wasn't made for working. Slot machines were far more enjoyable. Despite her young age, Yoo-jeong knew something wasn't right with her father. Quickly, she understood she had to reverse the roles, becoming the parent, while he became the child she had to take care of. 3 years later, her father was imprisoned for writing bad checks. Now completely alone, she was taken in by her paternal grandfather, a quiet, cold retiree who accepted her into his home more out of duty than affection. He wasn't wealthy, and made that very clear to her. At just 6 years old, the little girl now had to adapt to the daily life of Halabeoji, her grandfather, and fall in line with his habits. He flat out refused to pay his son's bail and told anyone who would listen that he had disowned him for bringing shame on the family. Yoo-jeong grew up mostly isolated in that house where time seemed to have stopped in the 1980s. Every morning at 6:30, Halabeoji would head out to do his exercises, buy his newspaper and cigarettes, and return home. He didn't visit anyone, and no one visited him. Most of his family and friends had already passed away. The only one still alive had moved to California to be with his daughter. Like many elderly people, he had to face the daily struggle of loneliness. He spent his days in front of the television, chain smoking, something he'd done since his 20s. The only time he got up was to eat, water his plants, or peer through the window at the comings and goings of delivery men on scooters. The only things he'd ever had delivered in his life were his couch and his washing machine. Beyond that, he didn't really care about his granddaughter's presence and never asked about her needs. Convinced that candy was the proper food for children, he brought her some every single day until she ended up with cavities and intestinal worms. Yoo-jeong had to practically beg on her knees to get high-speed Wi-Fi installed at home. Halabeoji, it's for school. How else can I do my homework? Useless, cursed generation. Always wanting more, more, more. You're never satisfied. When I was your age, I often went to bed hungry and never once complained. When her father got out of prison in 2017, Yoo-jeong visited him once. He invited her out for barbecue. She said yes, but reluctantly. During the meal, he drank 2 full bottles of soju by himself, rice liquor, and ate an absurd amount of grilled meat. The more he ate and drank, the redder his cheeks became. By the time the check came, he was already completely drunk. He pretended he had lost his wallet, and his daughter had to pay the bill. Clearly, he would never change. Now that she was old enough, Yoo-jeong finally understood why her mother had walked away. even though deep down she had never truly forgiven her. Usually it's the father who disappears and the mother who stays. But her family wasn't like the others. On the outside, nothing distinguished her from other young women her age. No criminal record, no psychiatric file, just a quiet life, almost invisible. At an age when most Korean women compete for top jobs in companies, she wasn't working, nor was she pursuing higher education. Her world was reduced to the walls of her room, her screens, her headphones. She barely went out. She barely spoke. And no one really noticed she was gone, not even her grandfather. Even though they lived in the same house, they only crossed paths. They had nothing to say to each other. Still, he gave her 50 euros a month in pocket money, which she spent on candy and beauty products. He never asked her what she planned to do with her life, and never offered to help with her studies. So she figured she didn't owe him any explanation either. Yoo-jeong spent most of her time in front of her computer, watching documentaries, dramas, YouTube videos. On Netflix, she binged K-dramas nonstop while snacking on her favorite chips and cookies. Episodes played one after another. She often fell asleep with her phone in hand and earbuds still in her ears. What others might call a hobby was, for her, daily life. Sometimes she wouldn't leave her room for an entire week. At only 22, her confined routine was already turning into a vicious cycle she couldn't seem to break. Still, she did nothing to change it. Facing the outside world with its fierce competitiveness scared her. She graduated from Kyunghee Girls High School in 2018, but didn't keep good memories of it. Back then, she had little presence in class. Teachers barely noticed her. She had no close friends, no boyfriend, and didn't even respond to greetings. She would sometimes hide behind the classroom curtains to eat snacks, an odd behavior that never really raised concern. She suffered from low self-esteem, though no one around her noticed. When other girls tried to include her, they always hit a wall. She also developed a complex about English, the second language in Korea, and a symbol of status among young people. Since she couldn't pronounce it well, she avoided speaking altogether, fearing ridicule. After graduating with honors, she convinced her grandfather to pay for double eyelid surgery, common in many parts of Asia. For a brief moment, she felt hopeful and wanted to find her place in society. But things quickly went downhill. She failed to get into university, then she failed the civil service exam. In Korea, not having a university degree is almost seen as a personal failure. That's when she began to spiral. She created a fake resume with made-up diplomas and certificates and sent it to the same company 3 times. To her surprise, they called her for an interview. But once she was seated across from the recruiter, she froze. Total mental block. She couldn't answer any of the questions. The interview ended quickly, and she was politely asked to leave. She knew she had messed it up, but a voice inside still told her she might get a call. So she waited. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. She still had the recruiter's business card. She called. The phone rang, then the call was declined. A message popped up. In a meeting. Please do not disturb. Yoo-jeong stayed next to her phone all day, waiting for him to call back. But he never did. The next day she tried again. The call was rejected once more. Frustrated by his attitude, she began acting obsessively. When he finally picked up, she lashed out, insulting him for not calling her back. The recruiter threatened to file a complaint. She immediately hung up, blocked his number, and smashed her phone on the floor. It was the first and the last job interview of her life. Her days started to blend together. Nothing new. Staying in bed and watching series became her main activity. No one was there to push her to go out or look for work. Her grandfather simply didn't care. Lately, their relationship had grown tense for no clear reason. Voluntarily isolated in her room, she became addicted to true crime content online. Documentaries, series, Reddit forums, YouTube channels. Cut off from the outside world, introverted and completely withdrawn, her life now revolved around an endless stream of violent stories. And slowly, this constant exposure began to shift something inside her. From the moment she woke up until late into the night, she consumed video after video, serial killer profiles, famous murder reconstructions, police interviews, cold case breakdowns, crime on a loop, blood, motives, methods, and sometimes no motive at all. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was obsession, a fascination slowly eroding the line between fiction and reality. No one around her saw it coming. She was quiet, calm, didn't cause trouble, no criminal history, no violent behavior. Society would call her harmless, invisibly harmless. But inside, something was brewing, a thought that came back again and again, a desire taking shape. And one day, a fixed idea settled in her mind. What if I did it? It started with videos, interviews with serial killers, crime scene analysis, true crime episodes where the killer is hunted down and every gruesome detail is dissected. Like many people online, Yoo-jeong clicked. She watched. She kept watching. But she couldn't stop. What others saw as dark entertainment, she experienced as full immersion. She didn't just watch. She absorbed. She studied. She took notes. She didn't identify with the victims, but with the killers. Day after day, her imagination began to overpower reality. She started fantasizing about a scene, her crime, not out of hate, not out of revenge, out of curiosity, to know what it feels like. Above all, to live what she called a real experience, a test, as if murder had become a twisted form of self-discovery, a transgression without the usual motives, no anger, no passion, just the desire to go beyond the limit. So she began to plan, in complete secrecy. Year 2023. Yoo-jeong had just turned 23. Over the past few months, her fascination with murder had reached new heights, and in early March, she made her first trial run. She tried to lure a woman in her 20s whom she met through the chat feature of a secondhand trading app. The two agreed to meet on a walking trail in Bukgu, but the woman had no idea what Yoo-jeong's real intentions were. On the day of the meeting, Yoo-jeong arrived on foot, wearing an oversized gray dress, a bucket hat, and large sunglasses. She spotted the other girl waiting outside a cafe, looking around anxiously. But the number of people walking around the neighborhood made Yoo-jeong change her mind. She turned around and walked away. Back home, she found a WhatsApp message from the girl. "You could have at least let me know you weren't coming." That's not very polite. But Yoo-jeong had lost interest. She didn't even reply. She deleted the message, leaving the read receipt visible on purpose. 2 weeks later, she tried again. Still using the same site, she connected with a teenage boy. Just like before, she pretended she wanted to buy a secondhand gadget. In reality, she was trying to lure him out, to kill him. She got ready and left. But once again, the plan failed. The boy never showed up at the meeting point. So now what? Yoo-jeong was at the height of frustration. The urge to commit a murder never left her. She no longer even considered the consequences. She deleted her profile from the secondhand trading app to avoid suspicion and started thinking of another plan. She needed to find the right setting, somewhere her target would be vulnerable, within her control. She needed someone she could trap. Then a new idea came to her, and this time, she didn't plan to back down. It was now late April. A week earlier, she had downloaded a tutoring app, a perfectly ordinary platform where students offered private lessons to middle and elementary school kids. The app also allowed parents to message tutors directly and monitor conversations. Some lessons were held online, but most were given in the student's home. Yoo-jeong didn't sign up to offer lessons. She registered as a parent. There was no need to post pictures or detailed information, since she was the one playing the recruiter. The app offered a wide range of subjects: math, history, philosophy, foreign languages. Using a fake identity, Yoo-jeong scrolled through tutor profiles. "He got the double eyelid surgery and he's still ugly," she muttered while looking at a young English tutor's photo. Then, posing as the mother of a 9th grade student, She posted an ad looking for an English tutor for private home lessons. She was looking for a target, a face, a weakness, someone young, available, and most importantly, alone at home. She lied. She manipulated. She built a fake story. A few days later, on May 24th, a young tutor replied. Her name was Hai. She was 26 and held a specialized master's degree. She had also completed a 6-month internship in the United States, as stated on her resume. My goal is to break the barrier many students face when learning English. During my internship in Chicago, I had the chance to observe. Yeah, blah, 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 mocked Yoo-jeong. You seem serious and open-minded. I think we'll get along just fine, she wrote back to the tutor. She accepted the meeting. She suspected nothing. But the next morning, the tutor sent an early message of apology. It was only after I accepted your offer that I realized the distance is too far and I don't have a car. I'm sorry, but I'll have to decline. If you'd like, I can recommend someone else. And no, no, no. She wasn't going to back out too, Yoo-jeong insisted, relentlessly messaging Hai, pushing her for at least a trial lesson. I'll send my daughter. She's used to taking the subway alone. You won't have to come here. Eventually, the tutor gave in. Meanwhile, Yoo-jeong was already preparing her disguise. She had pre-ordered a school uniform online. Her plan, pose as a middle school student, an innocent girl coming for an English lesson. With pigtails and a bit of makeup, she figured it would work. She even knew how to walk like a schoolgirl, feet slightly turned out, like a duck. 2 days later, it was just past 4 p.m., Friday, May 26, 2023. The sun was baking the sidewalks of Busan. After arranging the meeting with the teacher and exchanging messages while pretending to be the mother, Yoo slipped into her student costume. Black pleated skirt, cardigan, white shirt, and blazer. Dressed like that, she boarded the subway and headed toward Hai's home in the Gumjeong district, clear across the city. During the entire ride, her mind was blank. When the ticket inspector asked for her discounted student pass, she said she had recently changed schools and was waiting for her new one. When she finally arrived in Gumjeong, she got off and blended into the crowd. The area was quiet and respectable, high rises facing both the sea and the nearby mountains. She had never been here before. Hai's house was just a few steps away, according to her GPS. When Yoo-jeong reached the door, she was already fully in character. The woman who opened the door was, in reality, only a few years older than her. The fake schoolgirl bowed respectfully, as is customary when addressing someone older. She glanced sideways at the tutor, who remained completely unaware. Please take off your shoes and put them over there, Hai said kindly. Instead, she handed her a pair of slippers to wear. Yoo complied without breaking character. She looked like a perfect little Lolita in her freshly rented uniform and her backpack. She had done her makeup to appear younger. She smiled politely. Model student. Everything seemed normal. As she stepped inside Hai's home, Yoo-jeong quickly realized she lived alone. There were no wedding photos on the walls, only a picture of an elderly couple in traditional Korean dress, celebrating something. My grandparents, Hai said, smiling wistfully, they used to live in Jeju. They've both passed. My grandpa died too. I loved him so much, lied the fake schoolgirl. It's only when they're gone that we realize how precious they were, Hai replied. You're absolutely right, ma'am. Just call me Hai, or Jennifer. That's what people called me in Chicago. Oh, but my mom would never let me speak to you so informally. Hai laughed. What Hai didn't know was that inside her student's backpack, tucked between a few school supplies meant to keep up appearances, there was a kitchen knife, carefully wrapped. A few minutes passed. The lesson hadn't even really begun. Then suddenly, everything changed. In a flash of violence, Yoo-jeong pulled out the knife and attacked. She stabbed repeatedly, without a word, without hesitation. Caught off guard, terrified, and gravely wounded, The teacher tried to crawl toward the door, but a final stab to her lower back stopped her for good. The murder was fast, brutal, clinical, almost like an experiment. Hay succumbed to her wounds, but the most chilling part came after. Yoo-jeong didn't panic. With slow, deliberate steps, she walked over to the lifeless body, now lying in a pool of blood. She nudged it with her foot, rolled it over, and checked the pulse. Nothing. No heartbeat, no breath. In total, Hai had been stabbed 110 times. Yoo-jeong stayed in the apartment and began to clean up, calmly, methodically. She tried to scrub away as much blood as she could, dismantling the scene. At one point, she heard footsteps in the hallway. She froze, listened carefully. No, it was the apartment next door. She continued. She went to the bathroom, washed her face and arms, changed clothes, and stuffed the school uniform into her bag. Then, following her plan, she stepped out to run some errands. She stopped at a supermarket and bought a second knife, a pair of padlocks, plastic bags, and a suitcase. Then she returned to the apartment. All evening, she dismembered the victim's body. She packed the parts into plastic bags and others into the suitcase. She also took the victim's phone, ID card, and wallet. Heavily loaded, she left the apartment, using the stairs. Around 11 p.m., she arrived home, as if nothing had happened. Her grandfather hadn't even noticed she'd been gone. She dragged the suitcase into her room and locked the door behind her. She stayed there frozen until 2 a.m. Thirsty, she went to the fridge, looking for something cold. She found a half-finished pack of local beer. She grabbed a can and drank it, standing by the sink. Her mind was racing. Now that the hardest part was done, she couldn't afford a single mistake. Around 3 a.m., she left home again, this time dragging the heavy suitcase with the dismembered body inside. She hailed a taxi. "Take me to the Nakdong River, near Dongmyeon Station." The driver, a little puzzled, couldn't help but ask, "You're not from Busan, are you?" "No, I'm from Jeju. I'm starting university here." "Jeju? Wow, that's brave. Do you have any family here?" Caught off guard, she answered quickly, "No, I don't have anyone, but I'll have a dorm room on campus soon." It's just carrying a suitcase that heavy, all by yourself, at this hour. What was he implying? She said nothing, turned her head toward the window, avoiding the man's eyes in the rearview mirror. When they arrived, she got out, dragging the suitcase behind her. The driver offered to help, but she refused. "It's okay. I can manage on my own." She crossed the woods of Hwangsan Park, lighting her path with the flashlight on her phone. The park was completely deserted. Only the sound of the killer's footsteps crunching over leaves disturbed the silence. At the riverbank, she got rid of the suitcase and turned back. Once home, she returned to her room, threw herself onto her bed, and fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, completely free of remorse. The next morning, the taxi driver who had taken Yoo-jeong to the riverbank the night before had initially assumed she was just a lone traveler. She had told him she came from Jeju Island to attend university in Busan. But her behavior started to seem suspicious when she went alone into the forest with a suitcase stained with blood, only to return about 20 minutes later, empty-handed. Wary and puzzled by the size and weight of the suitcase, he decided to report the incident to the police. At 6 a.m., police officers arrived at Hwangsan Park. They began searching the area around the Nakdong River. Very quickly, authorities located the suitcase on the left bank, half submerged in water. Inside was a nightmarish discovery: a woman's tibia, a leg, arms, and a section of scalp. They also found the clothes the victim was wearing the day she was murdered: a pair of black pants, a beige t-shirt, and some cotton summer slippers. A forensic pathologist was dispatched to the scene, soon joined by a crime scene investigation team. Divers combed the bottom of the river for additional evidence, but found nothing significant. The taxi driver was summoned back to the station. His phone's GPS history had recorded details that led investigators straight to Yoo-jeong. Everything escalated quickly. By late morning, the police showed up at the killer's home. It was Yoo-jeong herself who opened the door. "We have a search warrant," said one of the officers to her grandfather, who looked disoriented. "What's going on?" "No, don't touch that shelf." What is happening?" the old man protested. Pale and silent, the young woman didn't lift a finger to stop them. She even led them to her room herself. Her expression was completely blank. She was trapped, and she knew it. Inside the room, which remained closed and dark day and night, the stench of decomposition was overwhelming. It was that smell that ultimately guided them to the shoe cabinet. There they discovered the remaining parts of the body, hidden inside garbage bags. "Did you put this here?" one officer asked her. She nodded, like a little girl caught doing something very, very wrong. What the police would uncover next would only deepen the horror. Inside the backpack, the officers found the victim's ID card, her phone, and wallet, items Yoo-jeong had taken the day before. "You'll need to come with us to the station." Although he had nothing to do with the crime, the grandfather was also brought in for questioning, as the body parts and evidence were found in his home. "What on earth did you do?" he cried out. "Nothing at all, Halabeoji. Nothing at all," she replied, her voice flat and colorless. "No handcuffs. I don't want the neighbors to see me with handcuffs on," the grandfather shouted in protest. But it was already too late. 3 neighbors were already standing in the hallway, worried looks on their faces. They would take care of informing the rest of the neighborhood. On the stairs, clearly shaken, the grandfather suddenly collapsed. He had suffered a health scare and had to be rushed to the hospital. Yoo-jeong, entirely unfazed by what awaited her, climbed into the police car with her head bowed. Her face was unreadable, cold, expressionless. The police began their investigation by examining the relationship and circumstances between Yoo-jeong and the victim. They analyzed the suspect's phone and computer for evidence. Search terms such as murder cases and how to kill without a body were found in Yoo-jeong's search history. They also learned she had a fascination with crime documentaries and frequently borrowed books on violent crimes. But what truly sealed her fate were the surveillance camera images, showing her dragging a suspicious suitcase. Meanwhile, Yoo-jeong began complaining of intense abdominal pain and asked to see a doctor. She was escorted to the hospital for treatment before being formally interrogated. As later revealed, she had told officers at the time, "I'm bleeding." A gynecological exam was conducted. The results came back normal. There was no sign of bleeding. She had lied. Just another attempt at distraction. A few days later, investigators made the connection between the surveillance footage and the fake tutoring profile Yoo-jeong had created. She was officially arrested. Still, she hadn't confessed. The grandfather was eventually cleared of all suspicion and allowed to return home. On the night of June 1st, 2023, Yoo-jeong finally confessed. "I felt the urge to kill after watching a crime investigation show." She became the youngest suspect in Korean history whose identity was publicly released under the special law on violent crimes. The case exploded across the media. Overnight, the entire nation learned about the horrifying, cold-blooded murder committed by a young woman who looked as ordinary as anyone else. It was a national shock. The story dominated headlines, largely because of the complete absence of a logical motive. Online, internet users talked about nothing else. It became the trending topic. Many expressed fear, confusion, and deep unease over the sheer emotional detachment of the crime and the chilling level of preparation that had gone into it. During her interrogation, Yoo-jeong told the police she wanted to experience a real murder, inspired by the crime content she compulsively watched. She chillingly detailed how she had planned the act for weeks and had to endure 2 failures before succeeding. "I used that app to target a potential victim. Then I created a fake profile and pretended to be a mother looking for a tutor for her daughter. When the tutor agreed, I rented a school uniform to look younger." Her choice of target, a 26-year-old private tutor, was not personal. She was looking for someone vulnerable, alone at home. "I didn't know her. We had no connection, and I didn't feel any negative emotion toward her. It just happened to be her. It could have been someone else. The day after her confession, she was examined by two psychiatrists. They concluded she had killed out of curiosity, suggesting a total desensitization to violence, possibly a psychopathic and bipolar disorder, and a premeditated act of unprecedented brutality. They spoke of a killer syndrome with no clear motive, where the line between criminal fantasy and action is crossed through isolation and morbid fascination. She was also suspected of bipolar disorder, previously undiagnosed. Yoo-jeong had never seen a psychologist or taken antidepressants. Police officials noted that the suspect had developed a complex about English starting in middle school, which impacted her academic path. She claimed this was why she failed to secure a good job. However, before this incident, the young woman had unsuccessfully attempted crimes against a teenager and a woman in her 20s, both unrelated to her academic life. In an interview with an NBC News team who visited the scene, Yoo-jeong's grandfather said, "I want to apologize 100 times to the grieving family for raising my granddaughter poorly. That's how I feel." On June 2nd at 9:06 a.m., Yoo-jeong posted a photo of herself on Instagram, taken inside the Busan Dongdae police station's first floor. The caption read, "I offer my sincere apologies to the bereaved family. I believe I was not in my right mind." The Busan Metropolitan Police Agency awarded the taxi driver a certificate of appreciation and a reward for his intuition and for reporting the incident. Without him, the search would never have happened or been so swift. The Korea Herald reported prosecutors discovered Yoo-jeong called her father before the murder, making remarks that sounded like death threats. She also searched online for a word meaning the murder of close relatives. It remains unclear if she wanted to involve her father or even blame him for the crime in exchange for money or a favor. On June 19, 2023, Yoo-jeong was transferred to Busan Detention Center pending trial. Her trial opened in October the same year before Judge Kim Tae-eop and Associate Judge Kang Tae-gyu behind closed doors. From the start of the hearing, the tone was set. A bewildering murder, a scene fit for a thriller, except everything was real, especially the complete absence of motive. The accused did not know the victim and had no connection to her. Judge Kim Tae-eop declared, "Until the verdict is announced, I seriously doubt whether the accused is ready to offer sincere apologies to the victim and her family and to repent for her crimes." In the defendant's box, wearing a mask and hat pulled low, Yoo-jeong remained impassive, listening to the judge's words without flinching. She was charged with premeditated murder, corpse concealment, and identity falsification. On November 6, 2023, the Busan prosecutor's office demanded the death penalty. Meanwhile, during the sentencing hearing that day, Yoo-jeong's integrated psychological evaluation report was presented. According to the report, she lacks understanding or empathy for the psychological states of others and shows poor awareness of cause and effect regarding events that concern her. On November 24, 2023, the court sentenced her to life imprisonment with an order to wear an electronic ankle monitor for the next 30 years. Instead of the death penalty demanded by the prosecution, this verdict gave Jeong Yoo-jeong one last chance. Judge Kim added, "It is difficult to conclude that the accused, still in her 20s, has no possibility of reforming for the rest of her life." Immediately after the verdict was announced, her lawyers appealed the judgment. On June 13, 2024, the life sentence was upheld after the appeal was rejected during the second trial. Jeong Yoo-jeong is currently incarcerated at the Pohang Women's Prison. The murder out of curiosity sparked a real shockwave in South Korea over the past 2 years. How a lonely young woman transformed her fascination into a murderous plan. The crime fueled debate about the obsession with true crime, violent content, and its impact on socially isolated youth. Many opinion pieces and podcasts have since questioned the limits of individual responsibility versus the influence of violent media. Yoo-jeong is now behind bars, but the story remains open and poses a troubling question. What does evil look like when it wears an ordinary face?